Welcome to my video on the 2025 movie Tron Ares in 3D. So, I am going to start this video with a review where I only spoil the first two. I will get into spoilers, but not until I'm completely done with the main review, and I will verbally warn before I do so. And the movie is rated PG-13, so will this video be. And yeah, I love this movie. Yeah, they scored a hat trick. What can I say? Before I get too far into it, I do want to note I will talk some about the politics. I don't think it's going to be immediately, but yes, there is definitely still some left-leaning politics going on here. I'm not sure. I guess later in the video I'll go into whether or not it's as much as the others, but yeah, definitely still appreciate that it is there. There is some left-wing politics going on here. Now, as far as let's start with the 3D. I would not necessarily say that this is one you have to see in 3D. I'm glad I did, but I mean, I appreciate not everybody loves 3D as much as I do. If you're not like someone who has to watch anything in 3D that they can, it is fine to skip. I mean, let's be honest. A couple of months from now, the new Avatar movie is gonna beat it in that, regard. I'm still not. I have a slightly complicated relationship with those movies. I'm no longer claiming that. Like, I know I used to love the first one. Yeah. Anyway, there were definitely times where stuff would like stick out at the viewer, even like be moving towards the camera. It's not terribly cheesy in that regard, whether that's something you're trying to avoid or, you know, not. Perhaps the opposite, in fact. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's currently unclear if they're going to make more. I guess it's undecided if they're going to make more. It depends on how well this does. Yeah, who knows? Maybe you'll never again get the chance to watch one of these in 3D. So, if that moves the needle for you, yeah, I would definitely not say. I actually, yeah, I have nothing more to say about the 3D, at least for now. So, I am not gonna go too much into the setup here. I will just say that the, yeah, it's less a sequel to the second and more a soft reboot. And I know I'm not the first person to note that. So, yeah, if you were really invested in the second one, yeah, unfortunately it's not. There's definitely some stuff that follows up on the first movie, and it's not a spoiler to say the following because it's one of the first things. I think it's 2 minutes in, maybe. This does acknowledge that the second one apparently exists, but it is not an immediate continuation, at least not for a lot of it. I won't give away if it ever becomes that, but just, I was not, what's the word? It didn't mean that much to me personally whether or not it would be, so I wasn't like disappointed or something. Now, yeah, I guess it's not a spoiler to say that the setup here is at least slightly different from the first two. And I know some people really don't like that, so, and I appreciate, I 100% understand feeling that it went too far away from that. But I think even if you love the second one, we can probably all agree, maybe not the worst thing for this third one to be at least somewhat different. That was something I realized, so yeah. Okay. The first time I watched the second movie was back when it hit theaters. Then I watched the first one for the first time, not that many months ago, less than 6, because if it was 6 or more, I would have rewatched it. And I rewatched the second one Monday, so just a few days ago. I had forgotten how, like, genuinely quite good that second movie is. I know I already said, I love these 3 movies. I'm not going to pretend like there's not flaws in all 3 of them. I'm mostly going to be, in this video, mostly going to be focusing on the ones for this one. And, yeah, let's see. I guess it was primarily, when I first watched the first, so months ago, I realized just how similar the first 2 movies are. And I appreciate, the second one's a legacy sequel. But I guess whether or not this counts as a legacy sequel to the second one, I don't know. I feel like it's getting less and less time that has to pass for something to count as that. I don't know if, what is it, 14 years is enough yet? Little enough yet? But, yeah, I did appreciate that this tried to do something at least slightly different, although an argument could be made that it ends up a bit reminiscent of a different sci-fi property, which I think I will, for now, I think I might save mentioning which until the spoiler section, the thoughts section. But it is set within the same world as the first 2. And yeah, the psychological accuracy is fairly strong. There's definitely some stuff going on where you really get a sense that, okay, these, the people making this understand how, our minds and emotions work. The authenticity, I mean, within itself is pretty good. It's not quite, yeah, it is not set in our world, and it absolutely doesn't have to be and shouldn't be. I can't stand when people say, "Oh, it's not very realistic." That's actually why I use the term authenticity in these recent videos where I talk about, realism is not for every movie. This is set within the approximation of our world that the Tron movies are set in. And yeah, I thought the level of detail was appropriate. Like, there's certain things where they don't really, yeah, there's not that much of that, but where it felt like, well, if you got too into it, it would just bog it down. And yeah, I thought the tone they did a pretty good job on that. A bit of grit is added to the grid, which it's one of those things, the first movie is essentially just like a sci-fi adventure. It's, it has something to say, but it's more fun than necessarily like trying to be, completely uh, credible or, you know, the second one is in part like nostalgia, a lot of that going on, and in part it's this thing of just it was made at a time when if you were going to make something with big expensive special effects, there was a pretty decent chance that it was going to like focus on, you know, making stuff look cool, more than like, yeah. Um, but here, this feels like it's the right time to have this. There's a bit more of an edge to certain things, but at the same time, it has these, fantastical elements. And yeah, I guess I could talk a little bit about the concept here because it's not really a bad thing for you to know that before you start watching. So basically, the the technology from the first two movies, is essentially, I guess, let's go with reversed. So in the first two, what, you know, yeah, what happens is the laser scans a Flynn per movie, limit one per movie, and puts them on the grid. And this time they can take something from the grid and put it in the real world. And yeah, it's not a spoiler to say, I will admit when I saw the trailer, I was, worried a tiny bit that they were gonna like overpromise and underdeliver because the trailer shows this, yeah, shows stuff from the grid in the real world, and I was thinking, did they take that from just like the last 10 or 20 minutes of movie? Because that's happened. I think a case could be made that it should be at least a little bit against the law, but there are trailers out there that are made up almost entirely of stuff from the last little bit of movie, and it gets us watching the movie, and then we end up leaving really, really underwhelmed because we thought that was going to be the whole movie. That is not the case here. The first time we see them 3D print something from the grid, ah, 3 minutes in, something like that. It's and that's not a spoiler. Yeah, I guess it's not a spoiler to say that's not a spoiler. And I know it didn't make any sense. What I meant to say was, there's no reason for me to not tell you that because it's not a spoiler. Yeah. Dialogue. This definitely has a bit of the exposition dialogue thing going on where a character will just like at times there's a certain character. At times it seems like they're like 20% of the reason they're there is to fill the audience in on something. But overall, I thought they did fine. I haven't myself seen that many movies that do the following, but I have heard. Let's see. I think it's like Netflix said that if you're writing a Netflix movie, you gotta have characters constantly state in dialogue what they're doing because second screen and all. And yeah, I don't think there was much of any of that going on here. I think the only times where someone would just say what they're doing is when they're like reasserting, no, listen, we have to do this. I know it looks like we should do this other thing, but that thing will work out. We have to focus on this. And, sometimes you need dialogue like that. That's not really a problem. So, I don't think I'm familiar with this director. No, not all of us Scandinavians know each other. But I wouldn't mind watching other stuff by him. I think this does a really solid job making sure we're always like without reiterating, at least verbally. No, yeah, I don't. Visually, it wasn't particular. It wasn't a problem. Yeah, this always makes sure that we understand what is going on, and you know, I wouldn't really say there were any times where I was confused as to why something was happening. I guess at the very very start, there was a thing where I was like, "What is this? What is this, please?" But then the movie answered it, and for one thing, it didn't leave us in suspense for terribly long with answering what was going on there, and for another, sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world for us to be unsure of what exactly is going on, just briefly at least. But I was also always what's the word? I was never um, I the various characters. I was sufficiently, you know, I wanted to spend time with them, and I, you know, wasn't everyone that I wanted to see succeed, but the ones I didn't want to see succeed were the antagonists, so that works. And I think that might just about cover yeah, I thought they did a good job of the the story is not too confusing, nor is it like I thought it was the right amount of like you know complexity. And yeah, um the cinematography really, like, it was never bad, and during like scenes of action and such, it was genuinely great. Like, I am impressed at how well I was able to follow the action, because there are times where the action, like, you would think, okay, this is just too much. This is like sensory overload. And the editing is also quite good. There's some intercutting where at first I wasn't sure where they were going with it, but by the end of the sequence, yeah, it absolutely worked. And it's one of those movies, there's so much that needs to be, accomplished, that I think I don't know exactly at what stage of production they decided to, um, but it feels like certain things were trimmed down in a way which might help explain some of the, I mentioned expository dialogue. Um, I really want to reiterate that I don't think that was a problem. It was just, yeah, it's the thing about, like, because there is so much that they want to make sure to include, so many elements they want in play, that it would have been very, very difficult to accomplish that without also making the movie a bit longer and have a little bit too much, backstory. Yeah. Um, Delivered at the very start. Like, as it is, there's a little bit of, um, yeah, we learn certain things not immediately, but a little after, and it enables them to really hit the ground running. Like, yeah, and yeah, there's some very effective storytelling where the fact that, like, yeah, so certain things, we see something and then it cuts out the middle part and then we reach the end of a certain thing, and that tells us a lot. Yeah, it's very difficult to describe it without spoiling anything, but it's, yeah, they did a really good job on that. And the production value is very high. This looks and feels very expensive. Um, I think that might just about. I guess I'll just briefly. So this doesn't. We don't see the grid as much in this movie as we did in the first two, and that is something that I've seen some criticism of. I've seen some say, it is less compelling to watch because of this decision. I understand where they're coming from. I I think there's a couple of different things. So I forget exactly when it happened, but there was a while where we were wowed by the volume, and then the volume started getting overused. Disney would put it in every single sci-fi or fantasy where it made any kind of sense, as far as I've seen, at least. There's, yeah, um, some Star Wars and some MCU ended up overusing it, and one of the reasons why you want to try not to overuse it. The volume, it's like any other kind of special effects delivery system. Let's go with that. You don't want to. It's a tool. Every tool, you know, has a time and a place to, be used effectively. You know, I don't know whether we want to say it's Trump or his cabinet, but one of them is definitely using the other a lot right now to do significant damage to democracy in the world. And maybe it wouldn't be so bad if the tool got wasn't being used to do that so much. Yeah, I don't know. I saw Austin Archer did a video. Let's see if I can recall the title, because my wrists are definitely not in good enough shape right this moment for me to look it up. TikTok conservative asks a serious question. And yeah, he does a fantastic job. I haven't been watching him terribly long, but so far it's been almost all hits. But one of the things was that, this TikTok conservative asks, is there anything that Trump could do that would make liberals happy? And got pretty ratioed. And one of the things that people just put in her comment section was resign. And I think it would be wonderful if he and I guess pretty much his entire cabinet would just resign. Just let someone who knows what they're doing and cares about if anything is left intact when they're done doing it, of democracy and functioning American government, at least on the federal level. Yeah, obviously I'm not advocating for any kind of violent action, but I don't have to tell the rest of the left that, because statistically speaking, we are currently, I'm not saying that was always the case, but currently significantly less likely to engage in violent action, especially lethal action. But in case there are conservatives watching, because I know, after Charlie Kirk was shot, there was a lot of conservatives insisting that, there's like a wave of left, violence. Still haven't seen any, let's see, how do I word this? Right, before I proceed any further, I definitely want to say I do feel terrible for his children. That nobody deserves to have to grow up having lost one of their parents. That's horrifying. I would not wish that upon my worst enemy. I just don't think we should be pretending like he was someone that he really wasn't. And I think it is very telling that when Republicans are saying, oh, look at these, horrible people celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder, look at how many of those posts are actually just like, no, they were just pointing out that he was no angel. I don't think I've seen even one prominent leftist celebrate his murder. I've seen a lot of prominent conservatives celebrate murder of left-leaning political figures. There are some who, are celebrating his death. From what I understand, a lot of them are members of minority groups that Charlie Kirk openly said didn't deserve civil rights and maybe should even be executed for existing. So I don't know. I really don't want to be saying that they're wrong for that. I mean, keep in mind, it's not like the people, celebrating it are saying like, oh, let's like burn America to the ground. That's what Trump and his administration are doing. That's not what we do. Anyway, the volume. One of the problems with overuse of the volume is, right, I guess I should just briefly note, I appreciate not everybody knows what I mean uh, when I say the volume. If you don't already know, there are other people who can explain really well. These videos of mine, especially on movies, already get so long. I don't want to get bogged down. Feel free to pause the video. Look at a description of what the volume is. Anyway, one of the reasons that you don't want to overuse it, and one of the that was one of the movies that especially got flack for overuse of the volume was the third Ant-Man movie, Quantumania. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because one of that was where it wasn't the first time people realized it, but that was one of the times where it like really did hurt the overall movie. The movie had other problems, I appreciate that, but yes, crap. Okay, just a real quick before I go any further. I am still quite fond of the MCU. Can't stand Disney. In general, not a fan of corporations, but even so, they are, really, really bad. They need to treat their employees better, need to stand up to Trump more. With that said, volume. Yes. And Ant-Man 3. One of the things was that with the volume, it doesn't feel as much like the real world. Like it's really good for creating just like a background, but if you don't also have a lot of like sets, maybe also locations, and I mean Ant-Man 3 does have some of that, but you can still end up with it feeling like, well, I mean, where are the boundaries of this area? And it's, of course, when you're filming, the volume can be, it can solve a lot of logistical problems that used to really cause headaches and production delays. But that's also part of, because those issues were, could sometimes be, well, I mean, listen, we filmed this one piece of the set from every conceivable angle. There is simply no way for us to fool the audience into thinking that it is another location. That is not going to happen. And with the volume, you just adjust a few things, and there you go. Same as with filming against a green screen and such. Which was also, there was a while where way too many movies used green screens too heavily, and then, we started to see, some moving back towards having sets and locations. But that was a digression and a half. Okay, by taking stuff from the grid and putting it in the real world, we get out of that issue entirely. In this movie, you actually see these things among, you know, yeah, in real places and with, you know, people and such. And that really helps. You know, it accomplishes a couple of things. It distinguishes it from the first two. It feels like a... It delivers on the promise. You know, the second movie did say, oh, we're gonna, you know, put a bunch of people in the real world, you know, put a bunch of programs in the real world. And there's this sense that the threat is greater and closer. And yeah, it's just seeing these, you know, these things from the grid in, you know, what not just is supposed to be, but genuinely feels like. I can imagine at least some of it is set more than location, but at least some of it really feels like location. It would probably be easier to deal. Well, never mind. It feels real. It's not just, we're not just told, oh, this is set in the real world or the Tron movie universe equivalent of it, but it genuinely feels like it is. So yeah, set design, locations, costumes, and makeup are all great. Yeah, sets and locations really have personality. We see at least one workspace for one of these. Do people still say elite computer programmers? And yeah, it feels like, okay, yeah, this belongs to this particular character for sure. And yeah, the locations, like, there's just something to seeing stuff from the grid on what is or appears to be an actual road in the real world. And yeah, I think that pretty well brings us to, yeah, so for sure, stuff like costumes and makeup, you know, there's not quite as much room to go as out there as, you know, so the first movie sets up the world of the grid. People don't look that different from one another in there, and that works because it's in part about totalitarianism, where, you know, what's the word again? Conformity is, yeah, a big part of it. The second one shows more of the world of the grid, and thus, you know, yeah, I mean, we meet a nightclub owner and go to his club. Yeah, there's that helps make it more, you know, and then with this, yeah, a chunk of it being in the real world. And I think that brings us to the music. When I heard that Nine Inch Nails were doing this, I was thinking, I mean, Daft Punk for the second movie made sense because, like, that's kind of, I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't really know that much about Daft Punk. I remember, like, when I was a teenager, there were some of the other teenagers who were super into them. I don't know. I think there were maybe three. Well, let's see. With Harder, Stronger, Faster And maybe that is the only of their songs that I particularly liked. I don't know. I never thought they were like bad. It just wasn't really my kind of music. But like the moment that I heard that they were doing a Tron movie, I was like, oh yeah, right, makes sense. I don't know. If I had, I wouldn't rule out that they were like straight up inspired by the original movie. But Nine Inch Nails, I gotta admit, this is why I don't do prediction videos. They did a really, really solid job. Like I would not have guessed. I don't know, maybe they're more versatile than I gave them credit for. Maybe I just don't know that much about. Like I remember hearing some Nine Inch Nails back, yeah, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, I guess. Um, yeah, would never have guessed this from them, but yeah, they really do nail it. And as other reviewers have pointed out, they really add like there's this propulsive energy to their score that is necessary, because this is more like, I would definitely say of the three of them, this is the most like action movie of them. I already mentioned, the first is almost more like, well, it's action adventure, but it's not like, yeah. Um, and the second definitely has some action, but it's not like constant. Yeah, I think that does pretty well cover. Yeah, the sound design is great. They Some of the things sound very similar to the way they did, yeah, before in these movies. But there's a couple of new things that they did a really great job on. That, yeah, just the thing of adding grit to Tron. Now, the characters. I don't think I want to give away exactly who fills what role overall. I'll just say I like the major characters, and there's no one that I'm indifferent towards. I thought they did a good job of having just enough depth for the characters with the most screen time, and it not feeling like the ones that didn't have a lot were snubbed necessarily. And yeah, I think the major characters in this, hmm, let's let me make sure I phrase this right. Several of my favorite characters of these three movies are in this. Now, the acting is quite good. I do personally think Jared Leto really needs to start treating the people he works with a lot better. I know I'm not the first person to say it, but it really bears repeating. I think once he like 100% puts it behind him, we can start to work on forgiving him. But yeah, uh, on a non-zero number of occasions in recent years, Jared Leto has let his, should I be nice and say dedication, or impolite and call it obsession, maybe? And to be clear, I'm not saying, there's nothing, like, if you are someone who struggles with obsession, I want you to get help. And I know that Jared Leto is rich enough that he could get the help that, yeah. Anyway, obsession with method acting. Jared Leto, on a non-zero number of occasions, has let that dip into outright abuse of some of the people he works with. I guess I can barely even say what he did during Suicide Squad, since I'm keeping this video PG-13, but you can look it up. Try not to be eating anything while you do it. Yeah, I really want to see him put that behind him, because he is such a gifted actor, and there are definitely times where that really, shines through here. I would not necessarily say that this is the best I've seen him. I'm not sure why some people really hate his performance in Blade Runner 2049. I think they're confusing the performance for the character. Like, oh, the character's so, oh, look, he's so pretentious. Yeah, that's the character. I don't know. Explain to me, like I'm four, how does the performance that he delivers in that movie not 100% fit the actual character? I do not understand. And I mean, overall, my favorite performance of his probably still is Requiem for a Dream. But yeah, there are times here where it feels, I don't know if it was, I don't know. I can somewhat see why they cast someone with so much talent. Because, like, I don't know, I don't watch every Leto movie. Maybe there is some basis for, like, him being like an action star more than an actor. It for chunks of this, it didn't feel like it was necessary for them to cast an actor, but there are other times where it absolutely really is. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I read that he was attracted to Blade Runner because of, like, some of these themes of, what makes us human. Maybe that's part of what he's, yeah, why he joined for this, because that is also a theme here. I wouldn't rule that out. And I do think, like, this definitely has some quite strong moments for him as, yeah, an actor. I don't think I want to give too much away about the. I mean, I liked all of the performances. Evan Peters. This might be my favorite performance of his. But then, I mean, other than Marvel, I'm not super familiar with him. I'd like to see more that he's in, but yeah, he did a really, yeah. I think that yeah, I don't think, have I seen Greta Lee in anything else? I don't offhand. And my wrists are too sore to check right now, but nothing jumps out at me. I'd like to see her in more. I thought she did quite well here. Right. I remember when this was before this came out. I swear I won't take forever on this. Just some of the anti-woke chud grifters criticized the trailers. Otterly Noah does a really solid video talking about it. Let's see. I think it is called "When is Pre-Release Hate Justified?" or something along those lines. That should be enough that you can find it. He doesn't only talk about this movie, but this is one of the ones he talks about. Yeah, he makes most of the points that I would. So yeah, just watch his video for most of it. But what I can say that since he hadn't watched the movie when he did the video, understandably enough, he couldn't. Yeah, she's really really great. Right. That was a little bit too little context. One of the things they got mad at, and I know this is going to be just shocking. I hope you're sitting down. Bunch of white racist dudes got mad, and misogynistic, misogynoir dudes got mad that there was a black woman in something that they were, a piece of media. I know. Listen. If you need, you know, smelling salts, hopefully there's someone nearby that can. I should have warned about that before. Uh, she's great. I don't offhand. I don't think I've seen her in anything else. I like to see her in more. She really, really, like, holy crap. Yeah, there were some parts of this where I just, yeah, I'll talk about it in the spoiler section, but I don't want to give it away. Just no, she was fantastic. And I'm really really glad that these are getting to be more diverse. I'm sorry, but did you watch the first movie recently? It is ridiculously white dude heavy. Like, holy crap. I know that there was, I guess for some people it's still, there was a while, and for some people it's still the case that people thought, oh, video games and programming and such, that's like boys stuff. And I don't, I understand. Let's see. I believe when the first movie came out, I think that was one of, during the period where it was thought of that way. So I can somewhat understand, though I think it would have been great if they had tried to push back against it a little, because it's obviously silly. You really think half, 50% of the population just don't like one of the single most fun ways to spend your free time. Do you hear yourself? Like, holy crap. Obviously, there's plenty of girls and women who love video games, and some of the, I can never remember the details. Feminist Frequency years and years ago did a video talking about, there was a woman who helped actually make computers what they are today. Just I've said it before, there's so many examples of women improving, sometimes outright saving media that is then, by a bunch of misogynistic dudes thought of as, oh, this is only for boys and no girls are allowed because you have cooties. I'll just include one example, I swear. A New Hope, the very first Star Wars movie, if that movie had failed, Star Wars might not exist, or at least we might never have gotten more Star Wars, and it's an awesome franchise. If you look at, there's videos, there's at least one video right here on YouTube that explains, George Lucas's original cut just didn't work. And it was his then wife, I'm afraid I forget her name, but she suggested some editing, some trimming, and I appreciate he did have to agree to it, but it was her idea. Yeah, absolutely saved the movie. Like I've seen clips from and heard like a rundown of what the movie looked like before the edits that she suggested, and I don't know what Lucas was thinking to include all that. Like, just yeah. So, and there's so many examples. Anyway, I think that pretty well covers that. So, the pacing I thought was strong throughout. There was a brief bit at the very start where I was a little bit worried. I think because I read at least one negative review that claimed that the movie was basically like just non-stop action and it was like overwhelming, and I don't know. Maybe I only read the summary, so it's possible that the review itself is more, it has some measure of comparison. If my wrists weren't so bad, I might check because I kind of want to know what they think would not be overwhelming. Like I'm almost 40, so there are things that didn't used to overwhelm me that do now. Last time I sat down and actually watched the entirety of Resident Evil Apocalypse, the second of the Paul W. S. Anderson Resident Evil movies. That movie, when it first came out, when I was a teenager, I mean, I didn't think it was a masterpiece, but I loved the pacing. I really thought that it worked the way that it, because that's a movie that never really slows down. Last time I watched it, which I guess by now, holy crap. Is it really almost 10 years? Wow. Yeah, because it was for the most recent of the Paul W. S. Anderson ones, and that was 2016. Holy crap. Anyway, yeah, I was basically overwhelmed by it. Like, that's a movie that can be overwhelming if you're no longer a teenager. I don't know. Maybe I'm sure someone's going to say, well, I'm in my 20s, and okay, good for you. I kind of wish that I could still, yes, for those wondering, I am going to do a video review of that movie at some point. I do have it on DVD. It's other stuff keeps coming up for horror month. By the way, yeah, yes, I am aware. It's the fact that this is. Listen, I do some of these movies. I do when they hit theaters. I don't know why they put it, in Halloween month. That was not my decision. Still gonna try to do. There's gonna be. Let's see. Right now it's looking like at least 2 more horror movie reviews this month. and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll do it some other month of the year. I just only have so many horror movies that I haven't done at all that I currently have access to, so I don't want to suddenly not have horror movies for Horror Movie Month. Anyway, yes. It never felt too fast or slow. Another thing, early on, I thought that maybe it would get too big too soon, and that also didn't happen. But yeah, the ending was appropriately, the scope. I quite appreciated. That's I do think each of these, the ending, the climax is bigger and better than last time, and the first one did already have a impressive one. Now, I think that brings us to the special effects. So by now, it is genuinely seamless CG, de-aging. As actually one of the very first things we see here is a de-aging of Jeff Bridges that does not give you nightmares. I know it's hold for applause. I still like. Listen, I get that the second movie is gonna use the character and that they wanted a young version. Just recast it. Like, holy crap. Just put on prosthetic makeup if you need to. Like, holy crap. Even the Nixon in the Watchmen movie was not as egregious as anyway. Yeah. But yeah, it genuinely does feel like we're looking at something that exists. One thing I quite appreciated, this really underlined the um, when something from the grid shatters, it leaves behind these little like crystals that like what it was made of, and yeah, like it genuinely feels like, and there's also a bit where someone essentially like, is that a spoiler? Let's go with sticks their hand in water, and they do this effect on it that really worked, in my opinion. Now, yeah, so the action, I've already mentioned how that is paced. Other than that, yeah, the action, they do a good job of making it sufficiently varied. I never felt like we were just seeing the same thing again. And yeah, they do some callbacks. Basically, one of the things that really make those work is that some of the stuff we used to only get to see on the grid, we're now seeing in the real world. And again, I appreciate some people are not going to feel like that's a get to, but a forced to. And yeah, there's a couple of new toys. That's something they keep being good at. Yeah, both of these sequels add to the repertoire of what the yeah, and I thought they did a really good job. There was some stuff that see, I don't really want to give away. Yeah, it's just it's really really cool. Let's go with that. Um, I've been trying to think of a good place to put the following. I guess this works fine. When I did my review on the 2018 video game Distance, I talked about how there's some inspiration from Tron going on. That was before I rewatched Tron Legacy. So I didn't remember. That movie does have upside down stuff and like spinning. That's a good trick. Yeah, I don't know. The 2018 video game Distance. It's like Tron Legacy without, with less like in the way of like characters talking to each other. You're not like racing or driving against or anything of the sort. Someone else, at least not in single player, limited experience with the multiplayer mode, and I don't know, you drive a car more than a motorcycle. Although I apparently, let's see, I feel like I saw something about a motorcycle in it, but I haven't gotten around to that. I think you can unlock a motorcycle, I should say. But yeah, like that's right. And in the movies, there's more freedom of movement in vehicles than there is in that game. Like in the game, it's linear, where in the movies you can choose. Characters choose what direction to go in and such. Uh, anyway, yes. I think that more or less covers the action. So, comedic relief and such, there is a little bit of stuff that feels like, wow, you can really tell this is, you know, Disney, they of the MCU, and those jokes. I do sometimes really love those jokes. I am glad that the MCU is starting to like slow down on that. Yeah. Um, I don't think it took over here. And it is, it's one of those things. I don't mind it so much when it's there in order to get, get the audience on board with, okay, we've had some laughs now, or perhaps before the laughs, let's have something that gets a little bit more intense, like something that goes up and pushes against, what can the age appropriate audience handle, what is not going to, get angry parent, contacting the filmmakers studio and such. And yeah, this definitely has some kind of dark stuff at times. Like it doesn't. Let's see. It it doesn't push the PG-13 rating that much. Like, Disney has done harsher, perhaps especially in the MCU. Also, some of the Star Wars stuff, but it's not as safe as some. Like, there's some dark thematic material in the first movie. Um, I guess the second one also, it's mostly the thematic material, where here there's actually like some of the visuals here, like, ish. Now, I think that does more or less. Um, I felt like it used the sci-fi elements that it has, at its disposal well. And yeah, I didn't feel like it was excessive in the PG-13, dark stuff. I thought it was justified. And yeah, so some of the stuff that you can do with grid tech, now no longer entirely confined to the grid, they use it well. There's creative use of it, and I thought it was the right amount. It didn't feel like, yeah, it could easily have felt gratuitous. So I read an article that said that there's only one. Let's see. There's no post-credit scene. There is a mid-credit scene. After the first bit of credits, there's a short scene. Once that's over, as what the article said, then it's fine to leave. So I did. For all I know, the article lied to me. Feel free to get another opinion, a second opinion. But yes, it is, there is something in the mid-credits scene. Not that you have to wait for very long. I don't think it was, I don't know, was it 30 seconds maybe of credits before it? I certainly don't think it was very much. I don't think I even got my jacket on before I was thinking, okay, I'm ready to leave as soon as the scene comes up and is over. Now, yeah, so politics. I made a decision. I'm not going to rhyme. If you're not already watching Randy Feldface, address that mistake immediately, please. Anyway, yes. The first two movies have a lot. The first movie has a lot. The second movie has a medium amount of things to say about fascism. And I think this might have been written too long ago for it to, I'm not entirely sure, because recently Disney has been somewhat more reluctant to criticize fascism because what do you know, he won again. And yeah, I can imagine that it might have, maybe they were just playing it safe. Anyway, yeah, this one is less about fascism and focuses on something important and relevant, but not necessarily fascistic. I'm going to talk about it in the spoiler section, but yeah. I wouldn't have minded if these just kept being that much about fascism. Yeah. The first one does a really, really great job of commenting on fascism. I did an entire video talking about all the different things that it points out about fascism. The second one has some things, I actually forget. It's been a while since I rewatched my own video. I think I meant to, and then I forgot on the second movie. But, yeah, certainly. I'll just briefly put it here. The second one comments on genocide. And, yeah, there's a couple of things in there that... the fact that... I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. I watched that movie Monday. The Olivia Wilde character. You know, her turning out to be one of the ISOs, I think they call them, as well as the you know, wonderful Michael Sheen character. Yeah, both of them being ISOs, being survivors of a genocide and in hiding and being protected from the fascists. And like we see, I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, though. And as Otterly Noah points out, there's definitely some autistic coding going on with those characters, with every ISO we meet in the movie called Tron. Barely appears in it, but here's a legacy sequel. Yeah, there's a lot of autistic coding there, and as someone who's met dozens of people on the autistic spectrum, yeah, love to see such like depiction that is not like hateful and bitter and angry towards them, because it's just, I don't know, maybe get Autism Speaks out of, you know yeah, the various movies that have very that kind of autistic characters or autistic coded characters. Yeah, I think that more or less covers. Right, to be clear, Otterly Noah talks about that in, I think it's the video he did on autistic coding in movies or something like that is the title. And yeah, I really love the way that the movie lets us meet them as people and then only after says, oh, by the way, they're ISOs. Because so many people, if the first thing, if before they meet someone, if they're told, oh, this person is autistic, they're immediately like, they might not even think of it as negative. They might think of it as being helpful, but they are prejudging people in a detrimental way. And the movie like specifically makes sure that you see them as just people first. You don't even think about the way that, yeah. So really appreciated that. And yeah, then with this, not that much about fascism. But yeah, I guess did I already let's see, I said it about aspects, but I don't think I've said it about the whole. Well, let's see. Okay, how do I best do this? As far as the ranking goes, I'm going to try to rank these worst to best. Worst doesn't mean bad. If we're talking about like which one could you like sit down with and just get like a really solid action movie, yeah, worst to best, 1, 2, and 3. If we're talking about which one comments the best on fascism, it's 3, 2, 1. And let's see, I guess if we are talking which one made me feel things the most, yeah, 1, 2, 3. And yeah, I guess that does bring us to the rating. Yeah. I rate this 8 grid-based 3D printed things in the real world being a threat out of 10. And that brings us to the thoughts section. Okay, I'm sure it'll get there eventually. Yes, so the thought section is full of spoilers. I'm going to spoil absolutely everything about this movie. So if you are still watching this video henceforth, then I am trusting that you are, if either you already watched it or you just don't mind spoilers for it. So I think I'll start with a couple of general things and then go scene by scene. So I saw at least one other reviewer say that they felt like the story here felt cribbed from the Terminator franchise. And I will definitely say, I mean, if we... other than, like, a lack of time travel, yeah, this... you could say this feels somewhat like Terminator 2 or something. And yeah, it's one of those things, like, I do think that it is really important to get people to realize all the problems with, I hesitate to call it AI, because when today a lot of what is called AI is not so much actual artificial intelligence as much as it's like programs that kind of try to guess what the input, it lets users input something and then does its best at guessing the output that is desired. Austin Archer did a really solid video talking about ChatGPT. I think it's called ChatGPT Great Lying Machine, something along those lines. He lays out a lot of, so I don't have to reiterate what he said better than I would. But yeah, lot of issues that I'm not saying this movie is like explaining, but like maybe some people will watch this and be like, oh, maybe there's some bad things about AI, and maybe look it up, And I did appreciate the depths of evil of the the most recent Dillinger. I guess I'll briefly note, so because the second movie also had a Dillinger, he just wasn't, I don't think the CEO of the second movie was a Dillinger, but certainly the I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Okay, I swear I won't spend forever trying to remember it. Let's see. His name is Cillian Murphy. I'm pretty sure that was him. He wasn't in the movie that much, but I believe that was him. He was a Dillinger. Is this supposed to be... is the Evan Peters character the son of the Cillian Murphy? Because I mean, how much time was supposed to have been between? Oh, I guess maybe he was like a teenager during that. I'm also not 100% sure exactly how old, because like Evan Peters still doesn't look that old. I mean, he's got to be. He's been doing these. He's been doing movies for like, I don't know, 20 years or something at least. Wasn't How long ago was Kick-Ass? I know he was in Kick-Ass. I haven't watched those movies. Maybe I will at some point. Anyway, in that he was playing a teenager, so the fact that I don't know, I could still buy him as like just, yeah, I don't know, 18 or something. Um, but yeah, I did appreciate that he was like he kind of was more evil than the grandfather. The David Warner, I believe, is the actor. I'm a big fan. I mean no disrespect to the character, the actor who played the Dillinger character in the first movie. Yeah. Uh, you know, Titanic, Scream 2, honestly, even though he doesn't have a massive role in that. And wow, I can't believe I'm blanking on. I swear I've watched more David Warner movies, or movies that he appears in. I really really like him in I think every single thing I've seen him in. Anyway, I swear I mean no disrespect, but yeah, that one was kind of just like he took two big risks, but he wasn't like killing people on purpose. And yeah, this one, he's like, okay, go ahead. I wonder if the part where like we do see him like turn away briefly and like consider it, and then he comes back and gives the kill order. Was that maybe a reshoot, or maybe it was just trimmed down? I don't know. One thing I am not the biggest fan of. I guess I'll start by saying that I acknowledge that all three of these, the hero is a rich tech guy. If not during the movie, then at least by the end. Kevin becomes rich, by the end of the first movie. So technically, all three of these movies are good tech billionaire versus evil tech billionaire. And that's not something that I'm like saying is wrong about this movie. That would be silly. That would, I mean, I might as well, you know, take a page out of the Chud grifter book and claim, oh, there weren't any, now all of a sudden you have black female, programs in Tron. And, Otterly Noah points out that happens in the second movie too. What are you talking about? Yeah. Uh, Imagine thinking that the anti-fascist Tron franchise is conservative. Come on, man. Like, you've reached self-parody at this point. Like, you sound like, I think it was Cavernacle who pointed out, conservatives today sound like the exaggerated satirical parody that you would hear in Grand Theft Auto games from like 20 years ago. Like, dude, seriously. But I don't love the way that this one kind of seems to maybe imply that there's like a genetic, an evil gene or something. Um, because it seems like every single one of these is evil. I don't know. I guess the second one wasn't necessarily that bad, although he was on board with the evil thing that the actual CEO was doing. But like the Gillian Anderson one, um, I wonder how many X-Files fans are going to be really frustrated with this movie. Uh, I don't remember if I ever watched any X-Files. It's not really my kind of thing, you know. The tagline is "I want to believe." I don't know the source, but I remember like 25 years ago seeing on the internet someone saying, "I don't want to believe, I want to know." And yeah, I'm a want to know kind of person. I do not want to believe something that does not. Yeah, I know that's not technically what it means on the show. I realize on the show it is this thing of like, oh, they're out there, you know, you just have to believe. But yeah, I feel like she was also basically evil. Like she was just saying, like the thing she had against Evan Peters was that he was risking the company. Um, I don't remember her taking issue with the actual violence, really. Um, yeah. And at the end, you know, Evan Peters is so dedicated to this, like he becomes. I forget, was that the original Ares? I remember they mentioned in this movie there was an original Ares. And certainly that does look like the guy from the first movie. Um, I don't have a problem with the character returning. I just don't want Disney to do a Disney and just like de-age and put the face of the actor over the face of the new performer. Like, just recast. Like, okay, with the MCU so far, that is what they're doing, and that's wonderful. I really hope to see them do it for Star Wars as well, because seriously, like, do you realize how much, like, you could actually help these actors' careers? Like, as it is, nobody knows that, like, if you don't watch the behind the scenes where they show like what the what it looked like before you put the de-aged yeah, the effect on, you know, nobody knows what that actor looks like, so they can't like build off of that role in the way that they would be able to. um but I think, yeah, uh I wouldn't have minded if there had been at least one. That is, I thought near the end that they were going to redeem him, um, because I mean that isn't what they're doing, right? Because he goes and he becomes the original Ares. No, the ending is the mid credit scene is implying that he is becoming, you know, he's getting that kind of power, and that's what's going on. It's not that he's redeeming himself. Um, because the only villain who redeems themselves in this movie is Ares, and he does not have any DNA from any Dillinger. So yeah, I don't love that they're kind of, because like, listen, if your parents happen to be rich and have done something terrible, that doesn't have to mean that you can't go against that, you know. And I don't love when movies imply that, like, you are automatically good if your parents were, or bad if your parents were. And, that is something, yeah, I, I did quite appreciate, you know, I guess that's a spoiler. I'll just say there are properties that challenge that idea, because the sad thing is there used to be, the the thing is that good and evil is too often equivocated to your status in life. If you are powerful, that means you are by definition good. And this is, of course, something that fascists use. Dictators, not, yeah, dictators use to maintain power. And yeah, and if you don't have power, supposedly, well, you're bad. What can I say? You don't deserve power. You deserve to suffer. Now get back in the muck. And okay, I acknowledge that some people do have to do jobs that are uncomfortable. But we could pay those people a lot of money. We could choose to make sure they have a high status instead of, yeah. Now, the, let's see. I think that more or less, I almost feel bad for Tron himself. I think I said that. I said the following in my video for the first movie. I used to think Tron meant the grid, but nope. Tron is the protagonist of the first movie, who's in a little bit of the second movie, and a complete no-show in this one. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's unfortunate that they sometimes movie titles end up being, the Rambo series also had an issue with it's not until the third movie that the name Rambo is actually part of the title. Now, I think that might be the general, but yeah. So if I haven't already made it clear, AI and unchecked corporate power, huge problems today. So I do appreciate the movie criticizing those. Like, think about how easy it would have been for this movie to, instead of been like, for instead of Dillinger having his own company, he could be like an underground rebel who, wants to take down the company, and the company just wants to help people, and I don't know why this, why is this mean person against the company just making things good for, because like there's so many stories like that. It's ridiculous. The powerful should be kept in check, and the powerless should be protected. And yeah, I mean, the theme of the power of that should the of that has been in this franchise since the beginning. It's there in the first movie, it's there again in the second. And yeah, I think that might just about cover the overarching kind of stuff. Let's see. I'll get into some scene by scene. If there's anything else I remember over the course of it, then I'll get into it there. But yeah, so with the opening, we get the. I admire their ability to keep it short. It actually isn't a completely ridiculous length. what's the word? Um, yeah, the bringing the audience up to speed. And yeah, the thing with the we see the grid, and then we hear Evan Peters. I guess I should just call so yeah, Evan. Sorry. Uh, should I be apologizing to a fictional fascist? I'm sorry. Tech billionaire fascist. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why the word fascist came out of my mouth when obviously I mean tech billionaire. Anyway, I do not remember the character's real name, and there are multiple Dillingers, so we're calling him Evan for now. Evan's voice, and we have the thing about, when are we gonna go into the created world, and he says that's not happening, we're bringing it here, and yeah, it is genuinely cool seeing the what's the word, the laser bringing something into the real world. And oh right, crap, I guess before that actually we see, so yeah, Ares is built, and we see him, we see Evan talk to Ares, and explain to him that he's now master control, which nicely done, and that I do appreciate. Yeah, basically the fascist dictator is redeemed when he realizes the essentially he's never been shown empathy, and when he is shown empathy, yeah, he realizes the error of his ways. And I have to, so obviously I am not saying that that is 100% the kind of thing that could happen in the real world. Let's see. I want to say it was Brigitte Empire who, I gotta start pronouncing her name properly. Brigitte Empire, obviously like British Empire. Yeah, she did a video. I think it's called "You Can't Hug Away." No, wait, crap. That's the How Not to Fight Transphobes. Emma Watson versus J.K. Rowling. You Can't Hug Away Fascism was the text on the thumbnail. She did a really solid video there, talking about how, yeah, that. And it's one of those things. On the one hand, I think it's Disney saying, see, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, fascist technically the bad guy needs redeeming, but he's redeemed through empathy, So it's this sort of centrist thing of, staying somewhat true to, the original, yeah. But also not going, criticizing too much. That's the thing. In the 80s, when that first movie came out, apparently it wasn't seen as like a huge risk to take to be criticizing fascism in an American movie. I wonder what changed. And the yeah. Let's see. Where were we? Yes. The way I think you can read it, and for it to not be, overly optimistic, bordering on naive, is to say that the not necessarily cure to fascism, which, in reality, it's for the fascists to stop. It is not really, yeah. If there's that thing about the boot trampling on, fascism is a boot on the face of humanity. It is not for the face to convince the boot to stop. It is for the boot to stop. So not the cure, but arguably inoculation against fascism is empathy. And I think I want to move on before I start sounding like Annalyn McCord talking to Putin. Yes, so Ares, we're told, okay, he's the new master control, so he's the big bad. And we see Ares against, a fighter. And at first, he just doesn't... I mean, in his defense, he was born like 2 seconds ago. Like, human babies are also very bad at self-defense. I feel like someone could have warned me before whatever. But he dies at the very first attack. And then, respawn. Meanwhile, the other one is one of those freaking spawn campers. Ugh. He does the same attack. Ares blocks it. So the other one does another attack, which kills Ares. And then we skip ahead until a point where he can fight off, like, I don't know, a dozen attackers all at once. Like, holy crap. So, yeah, if he's dying every single time they change tactic, like, clearly he must have died, and they do, like, later Athena says, we died 1,000 deaths in the grid. You only have to suffer one. Which is that thing, they said, oh, the Ares is expendable. Yeah. If you think that it's okay for someone to die, 1,000 deaths, while you yourself scream YOLO, yeah, they might think that it's a small sacrifice to pay for you to die your one death. Yeah, I think that is a really effective way to show, that's part of why he's so hardened. And, there's that thing about, death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, 1,000 deaths by one cut each also sounds pretty bad to me. But yeah, and he shows off Ares, and we have that thing about, they did a really good job. Like, the first thing Ares does when he's... Well, let's see. Was it the first time he was in our world, or was it just the first... I'm actually not 100% sure about that. Maybe it was just the first time the door was open. But the first thing he does, in our world, open door, he looks through. So we get, oh, he wants freedom. They don't have to say it. And, he comments on the rain. And what, if any, role tears should play in it. And then, quality save by saying, I hope you brought your umbrella, because like, yeah, for a little bit there it was sounding like, oh, I think he really badly wants to leave and I'm guessing he's not gonna get to. And yeah, I guess if he's Evan, then she's Jillian. Again, I'm not really apologizing to her character, but I feel bad for her. Like, yeah, from what I hear, she deserves better. I've heard some people really, really love her on that show, and maybe also elsewhere. I don't think I've seen her in anything else. But the yeah, at first, like, immediately as soon as she says, nice show you put on, the circus trick, like we're thinking, how so? And then, not long after we find out, you know, he didn't deliver the pizza in 30 minutes or less, so he gets disintegrated. I mean, if we're being honest, I feel like there's probably pizza places run by large corporations, at least, that would institute such a policy. I remember hearing about, before like unions and such, before companies were literally forced to, a bunch of people died in early industrialism because the machines were dangerous and there was not adequate protection from it. That's how little human life means to them. Like if they're not literally, forced to, they're just going to let workers die. And it is still happening. I'm going to move on. Yes. So yeah. That's when it really clocks the thing of, what is, I'm sorry, she's going to have to be Greta. What is Greta doing up there, and yeah, we see the thing with the, she manages to find the permanence code, something like that. And let's see, we have the thing of let's see. Yeah, I guess it's fine that they're using a joke to know, like he says, this is the 94th breakfast burrito I've made, and I still am not tired of the taste. Oh, okay, yeah, they've been there for 3 months. That you needed some kind of. The movie has enough text on screen telling us how much time has passed or is remaining. So turning that into dialogue wasn't the worst thing in the world. And it is also him saying, can we ease off for like half a second here, and she does admit, okay, I've been pushing too hard. And yeah, okay, throw me in emotion jail when I saw her hit play, and the video with, if you're watching this, you made it. I was hoping to be here with you. I can't be here in the way that I had maybe hoped, but remember, just because I'm not physically here doesn't mean I'm not always with you. Yeah, I'm sorry. That got to me. That was, yeah. And later on it is, spelled out. Yeah. I'm glad I was watching this with Danish subtitles because I don't know what the thing is, but it was translated with cancer, or the Danish word for cancer, rather. Yeah. I don't know why so many movies and shows recently have to just yeah, really get me in the feels with that one. But yeah, uh, I don't know. I can imagine some might say it was cheap, an easy way to get us to feel something for Greta. I don't know. It worked for me. And I think the yeah, um it was genuinely great when so she, they set up the laser and make, the an orange tree, and then there makes they yeah they start cooking everything with tomato, I mean orange. I think I've successfully repressed the urge to make an orange you glad joke. Yes, it's gone. Now, yeah, and the thing about, so um, Evan becomes aware of the, yeah, so he sends Ares to find the, yeah, the permanence thing, and he even nukes the, um, yeah, NCOM database. And that was also when, there were a few minutes there where I was not sure what the point was of showing. Like, I like Hassan Minaj, I really hope nothing has. No, I'm pretty sure he's not the one. Yeah, there's at least one of the. Anyway, yeah, he made me laugh back when I saw him more regularly. Um, so I he I think this is the first time I see him act and not be funny. Um, yeah, I thought he did well. I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily say that this was something that like watching this made me want to see him act more, but if he does, I'm willing to give it a chance. Um, yeah. But the thing with, the Paranoids, was that what it was called? The game that Kevin Flynn made. Um, yeah, the thing of, they're was it they're doing a relaunch of that, and or did they already do that? Anyway, but yeah, why are we seeing him there? Like, what is, you know and yeah, the fact that the nuking gets, knocks out those, the yeah, I think, yeah, that might bring us, yeah. And so yeah, he and Evan have a conversation, and then AJ warns Greta, which, yeah, you know in other stories, the yeah, this is not the only Disney property where the bad guy loses in part because of his own ego. Yeah, AJ is able to warn Greta. And the thing with, okay, so your enemy is on the move. You have, X amount of time to get to them and, retrieve some piece of information. Well, it makes me, not so much want to as just move up. I was already gonna watch the first Universal Soldier again. But yeah, also like, so they were off grid for 3 months, and they have, what was it, 1,915 messages. Like, yeah, ain't that the truth? Holy crap, that's yeah. It's one of those things of like, I mean, I realize she went off grid for a different reason, but yeah, the it's what's the word? It is important today to that we really every so often just unplug. Now, yeah, so they get off the plane. I think they flew in. I forget, but they get off the whatever they flew on. And yeah, she gets on the motorcycle, and yeah, really cool motorcycle chase. And it's the thing of, obviously it's very reminiscent of the straightforward light cycle stuff in the other two movies. Yeah, I felt like they did enough to make. I talked about that in the review section. Yeah, right. I guess I'll just briefly note. Yeah, the assault. Pretty cool seeing a bunch of it's we haven't really seen quite that many. Maybe that's why some felt that the action was too much. It was like exhausting. Yeah, a team from yeah, an NCOM team versus a um, Dillinger team. Throwing the discs and all. I did think the triangle, I guess I can call it a disc, can I? To throwable. That worked well. That was a really cool. Yeah. But yeah, the thing with Ares was going to help the one that was, first outnumbered and afterwards actually injured, and, managed to save him. And then, Evan just nukes the whole, the site from orbit, only way to be sure. And yeah, afterwards they talk about, it wasn't, why leave him behind. And, not only is he unmoved, he just straight up says, yeah, of course that's what's going to happen. And if you disobey a direct order from me, it's going to happen to you too. And that is a fun inversion of the first movie, because in the first movie, nobody realizes that the programs are like humans. Well, I guess maybe does the NCOM CEO? Maybe. I guess an argument could be made that he might see it somewhat like that, at least for MCP, I guess it was in the first. Did they refer to him as MCP? Whatever. And in this one, Evan very much knows. He's looked like directly at one of them, one of the Ares, and it still doesn't mean anything to him. He does not see them as human beings because they are his subjects. And there we do get some, commentary on fascism, um, as well as the commentary on tech billionaires who own their own companies and let people die because they are slowing things down. Wow. Yeah. I think that brings us nicely to the yeah, the chase, through the city. We saw in the trailers, which was so pretty cool to see on the big screen, slicing a cop car in half, and that, because like Greta is like, oh, these are the people that I was warned about by AJ, so she speeds up, and the cop is, of course, oh, you know I think I see a minority I can brutalize. Someone was speeding. I guess that's what we got. Yeah. And yeah. And very clever of her to use the, she gets she scares the bus, I think, the person driving the large vehicle, so much that they end up blocking the road, and yeah. And it is also genuinely pretty cool. Like, normally in one of these, it's because the good guy ends up escaping via a hole in a wall that may or may not be there when they start out. And here, Greta can't quite escape like that because they can follow anywhere that, yeah, that was, yeah, also just the fact that they, with technology, they can very easily, very quickly find Greta. There's never a point where they actually really struggle to find out where on Earth is Greta Lee. And that's because of all of the, yeah, there's so many things that can be tracked nowadays, sadly. Uh, Sometimes it's a good thing, but a lot of the time it's not. And maybe there should be some legislation blocking some of the bad things that can be done with it. I don't know, just a thought. And yeah, let's see. What's the word? Did I word that right? Obviously, with legislation, I mean, some of these things should be illegal. Thus, they wouldn't happen quite so frequently. Yeah. I mean, it's an uphill battle trying to get a corporation to follow the law, but even so. Yes, the other thing was so yeah, and also she doesn't have a light cycle. She can't make the thing that, the laser. That was also very, very cool. The thing that, sometimes they have like a staff that they'll sort of swing, and that also, there's some laser there, and that could also, there's one point where they managed to leave that in like a trace in the air, and then they knock one of their enemies into it, and it still functions as a laser. Or I guess they get, is it crush damage? It's something, it's very effective there, like that. And I probably have to speed this thing up. I've already been talking for over 2 hours. We're barely at the start of the movie. Okay, yes. I think the next thing might be the, yes. Right. Just real quick, I appreciate the trailer actually made it look like Ares was one of the bad guys for the entire movie. I mean, like the part where he's like looking at the military man, like analyzing. I thought that was like him being like, I'm supposed to follow these guys. They're beneath me, like the Skynet, becoming self-aware moment. But no, it was really just him being curious. And yeah, so I don't have an awful lot more to say about that light cycle chase other than, okay, so at one point, Greta, I mean, on one hand, I do admire the talent that it takes to get it exactly right, because she manages to figure out, let's see, first she, um, no, yeah. She is able to, she sees Athena driving, and she's able to deduce exactly when and at what speed to get her motorcycle so that it hits Athena in the face, knocks her off the bike down to the ground. One question. Did she know that wasn't a human being, but a program? I mean, I get that, I don't know. Are the light cycles that easy to recognize in the real world? Because she's never been on the grid before. Like, we see that very clearly when she is on the grid. She's fascinated by it. So, I mean, I guess she saw, I almost said one of the other movies, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look like we saw in the first movie the grid for the light cycle game. It didn't look that much like I mean, it kind of just looked like lines. Did they make higher? Oh, was that the relaunch of maybe? Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I hope so. I hope that Greta's character didn't like try to frickin' murder someone for following her. Like, holy crap. Um, I mean, okay, yes, at this point they have cut a car in half, but it didn't actually hurt the people inside. But yeah, she knocks off, and she looks down. Okay, she's lying down there, and then she looks away and looks back down. Oh, she's gone, and then we see her running up. That was quite cool. Um, and yeah, she manages to get the yeah, I'm glad that she wasn't able to get her bike back. I'm sorry. It was very cool seeing her drive on the cycle. I will say, were we supposed to think that it just like intuited the, or was she figuring out the controls on the fly? Because she made some very impressive maneuvers. Yeah, that, I don't know. I've seen much worse. I can accept it. And, the movie might attract younger viewers. I remember liking stuff like that when I was, now. I still like it now. Yeah, I think, yeah, the, that brings us to the part where she gets to the end, and, she destroys the permanence thing. Not so permanent now, is it? And, you know, yeah, she expresses empathy towards Ares. And yeah, she gets put on the grid, and Ares, yeah, there's an understanding now. And, very clever. He lies, and Athena very quickly, she's like, well, I may be middle management, but I can contact the boss himself directly. and find out what's going on here. And yeah, very clever, this thing of like, so he breaks the glass they're standing on so that all of them go fall, all the ones standing on the glass go falling. And since it's that thing of like a flashbang and that sort of thing, if you know it, you're going to be better prepared for it, and you're going to be more effective immediately after. It doesn't buy them that much time, but it's enough. And that again, like someone purposefully breaking the glass, I don't remember under their own feet. I don't remember that being in the other two movies. And yeah, they fly for a bit. They fly now, and they sail. And yeah, when she puts her hand in water, and it's these little bits, well, I guess I shouldn't say bit, because later there is a bit, but yeah, crystals, let's go with that, which I quite appreciate. Obviously they weren't going to be able to do that in the first movie, so their water just looks like water. And the second one, they don't really deal with water, and then, yeah, in this, to have them do that was very, very cool. Yeah, they, there's some underwater, some overwater, luring into the laser trails. And yeah, the underwater vehicle was also very, very cool. I guess I should just say water vehicle, because some of the time it's on, some time it's under. And yeah, so they managed to get, let's see. Yeah, they get to the portal thing and get out of there. And I do appreciate, like, Evan's forces don't really, they don't have a chance at even slowing down Ares. So yeah, they drive for a while. Athena's sent after them, and you have the thing about, let's see, the yeah, I guess let's get them to the part where, so they talk about, well, we're not going to be able to get there, and at this speed, and there's they also need to make a phone call, and so she makes a phone call, and manages to get Seth on the phone, and after berating him for answering a call from someone whose number you don't recognize, what are you doing? They, yeah, it's the thing about, getting the Flynn office ready. No, wait, he readies the laser. Yeah. And I mean, okay, I'm sorry, but if like my favorite video game developer showed up to my workplace and was like, "See, I'm this is me, on the magazine cover," and she even does the same pose, and is like, "Can I borrow your cell phone?" Yeah, I'm that's yeah. Um I think that pretty well brings us to the okay, I guess at this point I feel I should answer. It's gonna have to be one of the people working at IO Interactive, the Hitman games. Kane and Lynch, yeah. Freedom Fighters. I could go on. I won't. I guess everything they've made that I've played that isn't Mini Ninjas. But but yeah, they also take the car, and she says, "I'll wire you an extra 50 grand." Can he afford an expensive fast car if he's like clerk? Like, is he supposed to also own the, let's see, it was a gas station, wasn't it? Like, I don't know, that felt like maybe there was a tiny bit too much trimming of the script that it's really the only place where I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing, and I don't think it like derails the movie or anything. Yeah. So they drive and they bond over um, Depeche Mode, and I think it's one of those things where they then start playing the song that he's talking about in the scene, but I could be wrong. I don't really know Depeche Mode. Um, yeah, I think in general, there's a lot of music I don't know anything about. But yeah, um, so he talks about the texts, and that's the thing. Like, if this movie had been made 25 years ago, we would probably have seen the texts, and it's like, well, we don't need to, because he summarizes, the stuff that we need to know that was in the texts. He says, um, and that also, again, like, a lot of our lives are online now, or in this case, on phone. And yeah, there are situations where people find themselves with someone that knows a lot about them that they didn't consent to them knowing. But yeah, so they get there, and then we have the thing about Greta, how nice of you to join the office. They're actually, they have questions. No, you can't enter without a badge. Yes, I know who you are, but and then yeah, Seth shows up. Oh, I have her badge. Well, you still need a badge for, you know, Ares there. Oh, he's not coming. Oh, yes, he is. And then it just cuts ahead because, like, yeah, there's probably some really, I appreciate them. Like, we already got the joke was there. Like, oh, it's gonna, it's difficult to get past security even if they know who you are, and you technically sort of run the place, so it's obviously going to be much more difficult with him. And yeah, um, that brings us to the yeah. Let's see. We have the what was the other thing? Yeah. So you have the thing about they get to the office, and um yeah, I forget exactly when the following takes place, so I'll just put it here. So yeah, Athena, kills uh, Jillian, and it's that thing about, Evan took so many risks. He kept thinking, oh, it's only going to hurt people that aren't, you know, people I care about, that aren't in my in-group, and then it hits someone he does care about, um, himself. I mean, his mom. And let's see, right, I like that. So Ares, I think it was, says, oh, you didn't accomplish very much, Jillian. And she's like, 12%. She's not like talking about, oh, we enriched lives. She's just like, I made money, didn't I? Which is also just like, I'm sorry. There are certain things, until they stop ruining everything for all the rest of us, and to an extent for themselves, at least down the line. I do think mocking rich people by, attacking, because that's one of the few things a lot of rich people do still care about, is they want to be respected for the amount of money that they have, um, stolen from others through exploitation, including wage theft. And but yeah, so Evan never thought it would hit his mom, but in real life we are seeing like climate change is hurting rich people as well. Shouldn't have to count for them, but I know for a lot of them that's the only way. And I think, yeah, so he Ares, is hit by the laser, and manages to just barely in time knock Athena out of and the let's see, so he goes in to Flynn's and tries to find, and the thing about what's it going to look like in their 80s. And I do appreciate, that's, of course, they weren't going to do that in the Legacy movie. But yeah, here we do very much see, a very accurate recreation. It's more high def because, people aren't going to put up with it if you do it 100% like that, but yeah, the light cycle thing. And we even have bit return. Yes. So that was a nice little. That's also there wasn't really any room for bit in Legacy. Yeah, I think that pretty well brings us to the and he talks to Dude Lebowski, cosplaying as Kevin Flynn. And yeah, I wasn't expecting him to play a huge role in this. Like, obviously they're not going to have him do any action, and it's an action movie, I was satisfied with how much he's in it. I will say the thing about, it did feel a little bit like they kind of just reiterated his, like, in the first movie, he learns to, not think of programs as just something for him to order around. He sees them as people, because technically they are in that universe. And then the second one, he says, when I was younger, I thought perfection meant eliminating, anything that was different, that didn't fit the mold, and then in this one, I don't know, it didn't feel like a huge change between the second and this. I don't know. I think they're running out of things to have Tron and Kevin do, to the point where Tron literally didn't appear at any point in this. Which I don't know if is necessarily, like, I feel bad for Bruce Boxleitner. I think he adds so much to that first movie. So I'm not, like, he is great, but the character of Tron wasn't that interesting in the second movie. So yeah, I don't know if they make, I'll watch if they make more. If so, I really hope they bring back Bruce. Now, that does bring us to, but yeah, I know I'm not the first person to point out, yeah, he's essentially Dude Lebowski in this. He kind of was in the second one too. Like, if we're being honest, bio-digital jazz, man, come on. And yeah, that does pretty well bring us to, let's see, yeah. So the big action climax, very, very cool. So yeah, in the first one, they're getting closer to the beam, the sky beam. Before that was as much of a trope as it has become since then. and Tron fights embiggened Ares. And then the second one, they have that like jet thing that's like doing spins and just so freaking cool. And then in this one, we have the flying thing in the real world, which, I mean, I was probably always going to watch this movie in theaters and in 3D. But when I saw the flying thing in the trailer, in the real world, like, yeah, I was thinking this is probably only going to be the climax, which ultimately, the flying thing, only the climax. But the light cycles were there, like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes into the movie in the real world. So, yeah. But yeah, that was really, really cool. And the way that they make it clear, yeah, there's no way, you know, our militaries can stop grid tech. So the very, very cool as she's flying around, and there's the thing about managing to knock it down, and then she's like, fine, we'll do it on ground level. Kind of asked nicely. That was not cheap. But the bit where she fires off a bunch of little flying things and form like a barrier around Greta, very, very cool. And the let's see, the jets, and I quite appreciated that. The first one just shear the wings off and that's it. But then the other one, it crashes, but it crashes into the vehicle. Bit of the what's it called? Guerrilla warfare, just like in the first movie. Love it. The second one didn't really have that much of that, did it? Overall, at least. Yeah. And the bit there at the end where he comes back and now he's perhaps not permanent, maybe just impertinent. And the he some really great action. The bit where, so let's see, I think she attacks him with a staff, or wait, or did he take out other people with staffs or some whatever. One way or another, they both end up with half a staff and a disc and just fighting each other with that. That was really cool. Great choreography. And yeah, there's something very similar to that at the very end of the second one as well. Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, I think that might bring us to the so yeah. Ultimately, the grid. There was let's see, there was a nuking of the grid. Is that why Athena didn't just respawn back in the grid? Because it seemed like she disappeared, didn't it? But then Evan is able to put himself. Was that a different grid? Can't they just unplug it or something? I don't know. Probably not supposed to think about that too much. And that was also like, there near the end, he could have just surrendered. He could have taken responsibility, but he chooses not to, and I'm a big believer in that there's no such thing as an evil person, but there are evil choices. And if you consistently make evil choices rather than trying to do good, yeah, you may have to, non-violently, violence should only ever be the last resort. There are almost no problems that resolves in the real world. It can just be cathartic in media. At the same time, I acknowledge there are times where it is necessary. Stonewall needed to happen. It was necessary to fight Nazi Germany. Now, he chooses evil consistently. And I think that might... Yeah, I appreciated that programming did help save the day. You know, they hack into Dillinger, and I think that does bring us to the end. So yeah, we get a little bit of you know, we get we get a card. Who sends a card? Has he not learned how to email? Yeah. And yeah, he makes a pun. I guess he's expecting, because it's a dad joke. And the yeah, let's see. He notes that there's he doesn't think the world is ready to meet him yet. And yeah, and we do also have the thing about, the grid did so much, it made all these improvements, and that, I mean, I already mentioned, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but yeah, definitely doesn't do that much of like following up on the second movie, because that was kind of what they said the ISOs were going to be. Like, the end of the second movie has her outside of, the Olivia Wilde character outside of the grid, which, like, they make, they do a little thing where we think, oh, I guess he was the only one who came back, but there was a slight time skip and she was just waiting outside. I did say slight time skip. And the yeah, let's see, he Kevin in the second movie talked about how the ISOs were gonna make all these improvements, and then in this one it said Grid Tech did. They do acknowledge Sam's existence. He resigned for unknown reasons, and then the Greta and her sister, took over, and let's see. I think that might more or less cover, because I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted this movie to focus on. I'm glad Greta was the protagonist instead of Sam. Or Kevin. Like, I'm sorry, at this point, if Kevin keeps learning a new, heartfelt message every movie, it's like, holy crap, how terrible was he to begin with that he has to learn something new every single time? Where I think it works fine if he's just imparting wisdom on the next generation, as it were. Not Star Trek The Next Generation. That show did already have its share of know-it-alls. I think that does. Yeah. There wouldn't really have been room for the Olivia Wilde character, I don't think. And she's like directing now, so I don't even know if I haven't heard if she had any interest in doing this movie. And I don't think I know enough about, like, I heard that there was there were things that people hated her for. I don't think I know enough. Well, let's see. I guess, okay. Was she the one with the... You know what? There was a video by The Take on the situation, the why people hate her. I don't remember exactly the details, but I remember agreeing with where they landed on it. So if you want my opinion, you can watch their video on it. But yeah, it is it's difficult when there's sequels so far apart. I mean, I I get wanting to bring in new actors to help redefine, and maybe also like, yeah, I don't even know if you, like, obviously you couldn't have had the same story as you do with Greta if this was still Sam, because like, okay, so what? He had like a sibling that was never mentioned. Like, that doesn't make sense. Um, yeah, I think that does pretty well. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, I think that covers everything that I have to say. Let's see. I feel like there's one more thing. Um, yeah. Um, I don't know exactly how the next one, like, what's the next level of, you know, yeah. Um, once you've had the, now that it's possible to have, because like I feel like if the next movie just has like, I don't know, dozens of vehicles that are grid in the real world, I mean, at that point, why you almost might as well just have it set in the grid. But um, yeah, I don't know. Um, but I definitely was very satisfied with their use of the concept in this one. Um, I guess hypothetically, they could just do like you know, a movie that is essentially the the world of the flashbacks of the first Terminator movie. Obviously I'm not expecting them to make it R-rated, but other than that, yeah. So have, the world is now dystopian because, you know, I guess it even could be Evan. He came back with a vengeance, sent a bunch of grid tech out to destroy and enslave. And yeah, it's up to, I guess there's some chance they're going to bring in a new cast again. Um, but yeah, it's up to the heroes to overthrow it, which I appreciate is somewhat similar to what the first movie was. But yeah, I don't know. That as an all-out action movie, and set in the real world rather than grid. Um, yeah, that's the idea I have right now. But yeah, that covers everything. I feel like, is there one more thing? Um, let's see. Hmm. Right. The yeah, I liked when Evan tried to you know, yeah, you have the classic. Is that a spoiler for that piece of media, or does everybody know it by now? I'll just say it's a classic trope of sci-fi of the inventor or the genius losing control of their own creation when Athena comes out, and Evan is like, "What are you doing? On whose orders are you doing this?" And she just says, "Yours."